Okay guys, now we're going to move into the practice section. We're going to practice going through a section and answering it as you would. So first thing to remember is we don't read through the whole thing. We're going to be basically looking at the important parts first. So like for example, on this one we've got three different springs. We've got three different springs, one with weights on different ones. And we've got a set with a board in the middle of it. Then we got a weight in different parts of the boards. This is going to show some sort of trend. And then we've got the first question. All right, so from just looking at it, you know that you're going to be dealing with springs, and the springs are all hanging equally, meaning they have the same strength, and they're different lengths apart from each other. So it's going to have to do with stretching of springs and weights on springs. All right, so the first question is, in a new study, suppose the students had placed a 10 Newton weight on spring A only. Which of the following drawings would likely represent the results? So first things first, we look to see if there's anything that is spring A only. Well, we've got spring A that's sharing a 10 Newton weight and being at 0.4. So we look at this, and since all of them are 0.4 and under, and they were sharing springs, that means the only one possible would be D. All right, for number 2, in experiment 2, as the distance between the 5 Newton weight and the attachment of the board to spring B increased, the force exerted on spring B, so it's going further away. So as it's shortening up, that means there's less strength on it, so it is only decreasing. All right. Then we got number 3. Which of the following statements is most likely the reason the students used identical springs in trials 1 through 3? This one you shouldn't have to look back. If you're thinking about it from the perspective of a scientist, it's not one of the things that's being measured, so you have to keep it the same. So it's to ensure the springs stretch similarly, so they all stretch the same. So this is going to be A. Number 4, based on the results of trials 1 and 5, the weight on the board used in experiment 2 was we've got a board, we've got stretching with a 5 Newton weight on it. So the even one would be what I would look for, because that's what they're going to be able to have against the others. So at 5 and 0.4, up here on 0.4, we have 10 newtons. So 5 and 5 makes 10. So the mass of the weight has to be 5. All right, number 5, in which of the following trials in experiment 2, if any, was the force exerted by the weight and the board equally distributed between B and C? Well, if you remember, it's sliding from one side to the other, so the middle one is going to be the correct answer. So it is trial 5. Number 6, assume that when a spring is stretched from its normal length, it stores the energy to return to its normal state as potential energy. Assume also that the greater the force of the weight stretching the spring, the more the spring will stretch. Was potential energy stored by spring C higher in trials 5 or 6? Well, it was stretched further on C on the last one, which would be trial 6. However, 2 of the answers are possible here. So we've got F and G, which you can immediately write off. So it's going to be either 5, it's going to be either H or J. So in trial 6, because the force of the weight on spring C was greater, or in trial 6, because the force of the weight on spring C was less, it's going to be greater. So we're looking at H. All right, now we've got a whole new paragraph, we've got sodium chloride and salt de-icer. So quickly go through this, and you see that it's going to be talking about sodium chloride, water, and basically how much something is being unfrozen. So then we got a table, and we've got proofing. Proofs are like percentages. The higher the proof, the more percentage you have of the substance that's dissolved, and then the lower the proof, the less of the substance that is dissolved. That's just normal stuff. Then we've got another graph here. We got the volume of magnesium chloride, and we've got de-icer proofing. So this is a different de-icer proof because it's magnesium chloride as opposed to sodium chloride. Similar but different. This one, you have a steep increase until you get right under 112, and then it stays there all the way across. All right, now for this one, we got temperature rating and de-icer proofs of actual experimental numbers. So this is probably going to be your most important chart. So we've got freezer temperatures getting progressively smaller, and then we've got TRs, which if you actually took the time to fully read, you would know that the TR has to do with the ice rating. But if you actually think about it, it makes sense that as this is getting bigger, as the temperatures are getting colder, that's going to be the important number. And then de-icer A versus de-icer B is what you're going to be testing. All right, so for number 7, suppose a trial has been performed in experiment 3 with a freezer temperature of -30 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, which of the following sets of proofs would most likely be determined for de-icer A or de-icer B? So experiment 3 is the last one, so that's good. And we've got a temperature of -30, so that's going to be between these two, but closer to this one. So it's going to be numbers that are closer to these, but a little smaller. So you're looking at C, because it's just a little smaller than D. All right, number 8. Table 1. Based on table 1, if 1 milliliter of distilled water were added to 4 milliliters sodium chloride, the proof of the mixture would be what? All right, so 1 to 4 is going to be the same as 10 to 40. So 1 to 4 ratio is going to be 40 water to 10, so it's going to be a 20 de-icer proof versus an 80 de-icer proof, which only leaves 80. Okay. So because the total has to be 100, if there's 20 out, that leaves 80. All right, number 9, based on experiment 3, as temperature decreases, the minimum proof for a de-icer to be effective does what? It has to increase. The number has to get bigger, because if you are at negative numbers down here, the temperature is going to have to change to be better. All right, now number 10, which of the following expressions is equal to the proof of each de-icer mixture listed in table 1? A proof is basically an average. So if you know how to do an average, it's pretty straightforward. In this case, you're going to be looking at the volume of the sodium chloride divided by the volume of the water plus the sodium chloride. So this is a standard average times 100, because whenever you divide it, you're going to end up with a decimal, so you have to times by 100 to get rid of your decimal, and that will give you your total percentage or your proof. So it is H. Number 11, based on table 1 and experiment 2, if 6 milliliters of magnesium chloride were added to a mixture of 10 milliliters distilled water and 40 milliliters sodium chloride, the proof of the resulting deicer would most likely be what? Well, in this case, you're going to end up with a number that is above 80, because by itself the proof would be 80, but then you added magnesium chloride, which maxes out at 112. So it's going to be between the number for the sodium chloride and the magnesium chloride. Because if you looked at the chart, this is going to be under 112, and then your regular is going to get you to 80. So it's going to be between those numbers. And then number 12, which of the two deicers from experiment 3 would be better to use to melt ice if the temperature were between -10 Celsius and -75 Celsius? Well, if you just look at the chart, the numbers are just better on deicer A. They're higher, which means that you're going to end up with numbers that will keep cold no matter, will keep it melting no matter what the temperature is for the whole way, whereas deicer B does not do that. So we're going to be looking for deicer A, and it's going to be eliminating the bottom two choices right away. So if nothing else, you've got F and G. So if you run out of time, you can either pick F or G, but you wouldn't want to pick H or J because you know that those are false answers. Now, on these two, is it going to be deicer A because the proof is lower than the TR, or is it going to be deicer A because the proof is higher than the TR? And because the numbers you want to keep higher, the number with the higher TR the whole time, it's going to be G. And then we're going to look and see how we did. And we got all of them right, and you're all going to get a 36 and be very happy for the rest of your life. No, but seriously, if you keep going at the rate that I went, that is just about right on the amount of time that you need to take for this. And I had a little bit of commentary. So this is not actually the hardest thing to do if you just keep moving at a good pace. You just got to have your ability to move and stay on the questions and don't go over about 30 seconds per. If you take too much time, or if you get stuck reading too much, you can waste time that you could answer more questions. And I just did 2 paragraphs. A real test is going to have 5 sets of questions. This one only had 2 sets of questions. So basically we did 2/5 of a real test. But anyway, I hope you guys got a little bit out of this, and I'm going to link in one additional practice for you guys to do with yourself. And I hope you guys have a good day.